Number 1. Bloody Ted. I hope I'm remembering this name correctly. It has been many years, and I haven't been able to find the website I originally found the information on. However, when I was 14 years old, my friend Jeff came over to my house for a sleepover. Like a lot of 14-year-old boys, although we had tons of things to do, we ended up getting pretty bored pretty quickly. So, we decided to play the Bloody Mary game. Now, anyone who has known anything about this game knows that tons of people have given different rules for how to play. We really believed that it could work, but we knew that in order to get it to work, we'd have to look up the actual rules for the game. So we went online, and we found this really interesting website. This was 2001. The website listed that Bloody Mary wasn't the only mirror ghost that could be summoned. There was a list of about 10 different ones. And if I recall correctly, the one that we decided to do was Bloody Ted or Tim. The reason we went this way was because his method of appearance was different. Bloody Mary is supposed to appear immediately behind you. Bloody Ted, on the other hand, doesn't. You do the ritual in the bathroom in the dark, just like Mary, but Ted won't show up until you go to bed. Apparently, he would crawl out of the bathroom mirror, find his way into your bedroom, and kill you while you were sleeping. To us, this was so much scarier than just having Bloody Mary appear immediately. I don't remember the details of how to do the ritual, so I apologize if anyone decides they want to do this. I do remember lighting candles in the dark bathroom, and the two of us standing in front of the mirror. We recited the spell, and then we waited, obviously to see if anything would happen right away. We didn't really expect it to, because he was supposed to come later at night, and we weren't really sure whether or not we believed in it anyway. So after a few moments, we turned on the lights and cleaned up the bathroom. We went back to playing video games. But as the night went on, we actually began getting more and more nervous about going to bed. It was as if we suddenly were beginning to believe. The later it got, the more tired our brains became, and the more we actually began getting scared and worried that something was going to happen. I think both of us could tell that the other was growing scared, but we didn't talk about it. Instead, we just kept ourselves awake for as long as we could. And by the time it was really late in the night, our eyes were beginning to betray us. We couldn't keep ourselves up. So we got into our sleeping bags and talked for just a little while longer before we fell asleep. I was surprised at how much this eventually scared us throughout the night. We really didn't believe in it, but I guess the reason it was scarier than Bloody Mary was because you get so much more time to think about it. The more you think about something, the more real it can seem. I was happy, though, when I was finally able to fall asleep. I woke up sometime later. It was still dark out. I wasn't sure what had woken me up. I looked at my clock, and it had probably only been about half an hour. I looked over at Jeff, and he was asleep. It couldn't have been him that woke me up. I then heard a creaking noise from the hallway. It could have been the house settling, but then I heard it again, and I knew it was someone walking. There was no light on under the door. Also, my parents weren't the type of people who got up in the middle of the night. If they did, I doubted they would walk around in the dark hallway. Fear gripped me as I remembered what Jeff and I had done in the bathroom. Ted, or whomever, must have been summoned. He must have crawled out of the bathroom mirror and was coming towards our room. The footfalls kept coming, one after the other. I was so scared and didn't know what to do, and they stopped outside of my bedroom door. I was frozen in fear, but didn't want to be scared alone. I shook Jeff awake when he groggily asked me what. I told him that the ritual worked, and Ted was coming for us. He was outside our door. At first he thought I was joking, but then he watched as the doorknob to the bedroom door began to turn. We couldn't do anything. The knob turned, the latch clicked, and then the door slowly opened. Very slowly. In a moment, we were looking eye to eye with a very big man that neither of us had ever seen before in our lives. He looked right at us, and we knew that he was Ted. I screamed for my father. The man seemed shocked to see us, and my screams seemed to shock him too. He let go of the door and ran down the stairs. My dad came into the room and told us there was an intruder in the house, and for us to remain in the room. He closed the door. We were terrified, thinking that the man had to be Ted, and that he was going to kill my father. In short time, as we waited, we heard sirens and police cars pulled up to our house. I wasn't sure what was going on, but the police eventually came to our room to talk to us. It turned out to be a weird coincidence. Of course, the man wasn't bloody Ted. He was just a burglar. That was why he had opened the door so slowly. He was checking to see if anyone in the house was awake, and we were. He was quickly arrested. Ted never came that night, or any other night, but we never played the game again. Number 2. The Campout. Looking back at my past, I cannot understand why I ever liked camping. But when my best friend Joey got a tent from his father, we spent many nights camped out in his backyard. Nowadays, I don't really like the idea of sleeping in a tent, but when I was a kid, it was just the most fun thing. I think Joey and I were 9 or 10 when these sleepovers in the tent first came about. We did them nearly every weekend. During the summer, we'd sometimes be out in the backyard for days. It really felt like camping because the backyard was so large. We'd read comic books, eat junk food, and just about anything else you could imagine. And being young boys, we of course told each other scary stories. When I was 12 years old, I was over at Joey's house for a summer sleepover. Before we went out to the tent, we were hanging out in the kitchen. Joey's older brother came over, and he asked if we were going to go out in the tent that night. We told him yeah. He told us to be careful, because the past couple of nights, he'd been seeing someone creeping around in the forest behind the yard. It was probably nothing, and he let us know he'd be up late if we needed him. The first thing that most people will think is that he was trying to scare us. That is what big brothers do. But Joey's big brother, Ford, wasn't like that at all. He was a really nice guy, and we were sure he was just sincerely looking out for me and Joey. We went out into the tent. We did our normal thing, and kept awake as long as we could. But we were young, and we could only keep awake for so long. I'm not sure when we fell asleep, but it was late. I should let you know that there were lights in the backyard. One shone out by the tent, if it was turned on by the house. I wasn't sure how long I had been out, but I was woken up by the light flipping on. Getting up, I looked around for Joey, and he wasn't there. I thought he probably had to go in the house to go to the bathroom or something. He wasn't the type who'd just pee by a tree. But even if he did go into the house, why did he turn the light on out by the tent? I tried to cover my face up with my blanket and go back to sleep. I didn't fall asleep. In fact, I heard some noises and assumed that Joey was coming back to the tent. It sounded like someone walking, but I wasn't sure, and he didn't show up. And when I was listening, I thought the noises were coming from behind the tent. I worried a bit and recalled what Ford had said, but also I was wondering why Joey had been gone for so long. I uncovered my head and looked at the tent wall toward the light. It took a few moments, but I saw a shadow of a person walking next to the tent. The shadow was shaped like a pretty big man, and he was holding an axe. I jumped up as quickly as I could. I ran out the front of the tent and towards the house as quickly as I could. I didn't look back. I just ran into the house, locked the door behind me. Joey was in there, along with his brother Ford. They were talking and noticed me, and I told them what I saw. Ford called the police. When they showed up, they found an axe in the backyard, laying in a pile with some clothes. It had blood on it. I guess when it was analyzed, it was found to not be human blood. So we weren't sure exactly what was going on. Probably some wacko out in the forest killing animals. But why he walked by the tent with the axe, I'll never know. Why he left his clothes and his axe out there, I'll never know. But I couldn't sleep out there again after that. Number 3. Knocking. This happened at my friend Keiko's house. She lived outside Osaka in Japan. This is where both of us grew up. Keiko's father worked in Tokyo, and he was never home. Her mother was a nurse, who worked overnight. Keiko really didn't like being alone in her house at night, so sleepovers were common. My parents were okay with me being over there most nights. I've lived in the United States for a while now, and I have noticed many differences in our cultures and beliefs. Our beliefs in the supernatural are a lot more casual than it is in America. Not everyone believes in spirits, I suppose, but it was my experience that most accept the fact that they can exist. Anyway, Keiko and I were in the living room watching television. I can't remember what it was that we were watching. All I know is that it was not a scary show. So we weren't sitting around being scared. Early in the night, we heard a knock at Keiko's door. We weren't expecting anyone, so Keiko didn't get up right away. However, when the knock came again, she got up and went and looked through the window. No one was at the door. We immediately thought that perhaps it was just some kids playing a really bad prank. She came back, and we went back to watching our show. It couldn't have been more than 5 minutes later when there was a knock at the door again. And just like before, Keiko looked out the door, and there was no one there. We still believed it had to be kids. This time, however, as she began walking back to the couch, the knock came again. She quickly looked out the window and told me that she didn't see anyone outside. I got up off the couch and then walked over to the door. I was about to talk, and then we heard the knock. This time, it was much louder and much faster. We were both surprised and we jumped. Keiko was right by the door, so she looked out and she didn't see anyone there. Now, we were finally scared, and this was weird. How does one react when such a thing happens? I mean, honestly, we couldn't call the police because there was no one there. If we called Keiko's mother, she would likely just think we were watching scary movies and frightened ourselves. We did the only thing that we could do. We went back to the couch. Not long after that, we heard the knock again. This time, Keiko did not go answer it. We thought ignoring it was the best idea, but it knocked again. And again. And it kept knocking. It was then that the scariest part happened. When we thought the knocking had stopped, we heard a voice at the door. The voice told us,
Keiko, this is your Aunt Uni. Open the door.
The voice was cold, strained, and didn't sound like Keiko's Aunt Uni. It wouldn't have mattered if it had, as Aunt Uni had passed away years before. There was another knock. And then we heard,
It's Aunt Uni, Keiko. Open the door.
We just looked at each other and wondered. Finally, though, we decided to just go upstairs to Keiko's room and ignore it. Up there, we were unable to hear the knocking or voice anymore. It took us forever to sleep that night, and the occurrence never repeated. But even for one night, it was scary enough to terrify us for a long, long time. Hey all, Killer Orange Cat here. These stories, both the video and the script, will be posted on the Killer Orange Cat subreddit immediately. Feel free to check that out and chat about the video if you would like. The Reddit is taking off a little slow, but I'm hoping it will get going. The link to both it and my sister's Killer Orange Cat merchandise store are up in the description to the channel. Feel free to check them out. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please consider hitting the subscribe button below, or use the icon of Ichigo that will appear at the end of this closing. Leave some comments to let me know what you think of the video, and consider sharing it with someone you think might enjoy it. You can always follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter. If you have a story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please email it to the address included in the description. My only requirement is that the story is original, meaning it has not been read on any other YouTube channel. I hope you all are having a great weekend, and please don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.